Welcome to Rudo Valentino Connections. This is a video summary of a follow-up post on Sheik Week that I put up just yesterday actually. And the same night that Sheik Week started, November 27th, 1921, that night, there was a night of terror in New Haven, Connecticut, as Sheik Week begins. A deadly fire, multiple deaths, as a prologue goes horribly wrong. And this post recounts some of the prologues that were done in some theaters across the country before the film was shown. They involved Prizma pictures, and I have a definition of Prizma in the notes. Colorful backgrounds, essentially, scenes of tents in the desert, singing, all sorts of things that were supposed to evoke the spirit of the Arabian desert and to work the audience up into the mood to see the Sheik. And this first clipping involves the one here in New York at the Rialto at Times Square, Manhattan. Scrolling down, I have clips describing the kind of shows they put on in Calgary, Canada, for example. A tent in the desert, a baritone, and a song called "Till the Sands of the Desert Grow Cold." Now, there was another prologue done in Winnipeg, Canada, at another Capitol Theater, which showed a realistic scene from the very heart of the hot, sand-covered desert, with lighting effects playing its whole gamut of glitter upon it. The curtains part with the sun partially clouded, and this scene plays out. So it was quite something to see. It must have been actually quite interesting. Now, this piece here in this Winnipeg prologue also included "Till the Sands of the Desert Grow Cold." Now, this was a popular song that was composed in 1911. But there were several renditions done, and they're on YouTube. But this particular video that I've embedded here is by a singer called Donald Chambers. And there's a link down at the bottom, actually in the context here of the lyrics to the song. But this particular video shows some of the lyrics well into the video, and I think it's worth a listen. It's quite something to hear. I'll play a little snippet here. If it will spool. There we go.
The hot winds that come to thee, o'er desert sands all go from thee. I bid them to tell thee that I love thee, feeding my soul to thee.
So you obviously get a sense of what the audience may have heard as part of this prologue. So this was going on in different parts of the country, but on that first day of Sheik Week, a terrible tragedy occurred in New Haven, Connecticut. As the late newspaper editions hit the street, the editions showed the changing story as it evolved. Yale students rescued many. It was in New Haven. Of course, Yale University is there. At first, they thought there were 4 dead, 400 injured, and this number of fatalities and casualties went up, obviously, as the news came out. 15 reported dead, 60 hurt, scores trampled as 900 battled to reach exits in the darkened house. The building was really already 100 years old. It had been a church. It was sold to Yale University and was used as an auditorium and music school for about 20 years. And then one story reported the building was altered for use as a movie theater about 6 years before the Sheik was booked for that night. There's some different reporting on how the fire actually got started. Was it from an ember, from an incense lamp in front of the screen? Or some said it was a flash from the left wing of the stage, which set the curtain ablaze. But the difference is understandable, as the scene would soon turn into chaos. The incense lamp scenario really seems to be the most likely, given the background that was included in the New York Tribune. And I have several clippings here which really describe in detail what probably happened. On Ember, there were hanging lamps or incense burners which were swinging only a short distance below the ancient wooden ceiling of the building. And the screen had already dropped for the motion picture to be shown. And only a few minutes into the picture, there was smoke curling around the edge of the screen, and it really was a panic. The theater was really filled to capacity. There were anywhere from 800 to 1,000 people there, and it was a terrible situation for sure. There were only 3 exits on the ground floor, and so you can imagine the crush to get out. And of course, I discussed some of the key elements of this, how there were children there and the parents were holding the children by their heads to try to keep them out of the flailing mass of bodies that were falling and being trampled on. The people in the lobby were standing waiting for the second show already. They were pushed back into the street as people rushed to get out of the front of the theater. The people in the balcony were trapped, and they were jumping from the balcony onto others below them. So it was really chaotic. Yale students were there, of course. Some, of course, became victims of the fire. They tried to urge order, but the exits were blocked and panic ensued. Now, there was one especially chilling scene where the building started to burn totally. The flames went to one of the walls where there was one exit and to the fire escape there, and the crowd standing outside were horrified when they saw the body of a boy who was seen burning on the fire escape. It really shocked people to see that. Every piece of equipment in New Haven was rushed to the scene, but the Rialto was completely destroyed, along with another theater, actually burlesque theater, called the Hyperion, which was built to the rear of the Rialto. So that was gone too. So it really was the worst disaster that had occurred in the city. The fire burned for 2.5 hours. Across the street, there was the Hotel Taft, was turned to a first aid station. There were several hospitals which received the injured, and the manager of the theater and his assistant were initially detained by authorities but were released on their own recognizance. But the final edition of the Daily News reported that the coroner was prepared to issue manslaughter charges against the manager of the theater. So it's rather ironic that while Sheik Week was starting to celebrate the smashing success of the Sheik, the lives of many who were eager to see the film lost their lives, while survivors of the New Haven tragedy were left with frightening memories of what should have been a night spent enjoying the most popular film in the country. Now, if you look at the notes, I have a little squib about the Prizma color system with a link to the Wikipedia article on that. And another kind of interesting aside here is that the New York Evening World reported another film-related story right next to the New Haven Theater fire headlines. And there was a banner actually across the top of the paper on page 1. And that story was titled, "Arbuckle, in his own defense, goes on stand and gives his version of actress's death." Now, that story is still remembered to this day, unlike the fatal New Haven fire, which greeted the Sheik on November 27th, 1921.